Good morning, everybody.
Hey, good morning, Joe Shaver.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hiya.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Joe, I sent Joe Shaver. I sent you a message through Facebook because your girl on Bone Set came by my open house and said she is a girlfriend looking.
Oh,
So maybe give her a tingle and sell my
okay.
house.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, of course.
All right, guys, let's hop in here. How was last week? How are we surviving this new market?
It was like this Zoom call, crickets.
I'm like, I don't got much.
All right, anyone have any properties on the market that they're struggling with, having success with? Yeah.
I have one in Imesville.
Tell me about it.
It needs a new HVAC. The seller will replace it if we get a contract.
Yay. Very cool.
That's a nice area out there.
Yeah, it's got 2 acres, which apparently is too much yard for a lot of people.
I'm screwed then on my 5 acres.
That's funny. That's exactly what Joe and I were talking about yesterday. How,
Yeah.
18 months ago, 2 acres was like, would have had 50 offers. Now it's like, it's a little too much for me.
Right? I'm like,
Mhm.
hire a mower for $35 a week. Like, what is the problem?
Maybe offers, a season of mowing as a
Right.
incentive.
I'm having a hard enough time getting my guy to keep it mowed.
Yeah.
I'm just watching on my phone.
All right. Other insights out there in the marketplace, things you guys are seeing.
I'm just shocked. I have this listing where Joe Shaver sold the neighbor house in the mid 7s or low 7s, and it didn't have a patio, it didn't have a pergola, it didn't have a sunroom, it didn't have a second level, and I can't get any showings on my listing, and there were 5 offers on the one that Joe got. And I've got like nothing, and I'm a little panicked because it's not being shown, So, and my people have bought another house. Eek.
Joe Shaver's name keeps coming up a lot this morning.
Yeah, sorry,
Um,
Joe. Yeah.
What's
you're
the
popular guy.
neighborhood? What's the
So that's the
neighborhood?
one on Bone Set, the
Oh,
over
okay.
55. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
house that you won had 5 offers on it, Joe, and I've been able to verify that because I've talked to those other agents, and
Yeah.
they just sort of said that their buyers have like evaporated, that they, either decided to stay put or look at another over 55 community, And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, mine has an upper level, has a sunroom, has a pergola, has a patio, has everything, and I can't get arrested. I mean, it's awful,
What's
That could
hard
be a
is that-
sign of the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's hard to get feedback also when you're not getting showings.
Yes, true.
And that's
Mhm.
what we've been struggling with our Tot Hill listing is we don't have enough showings to even, make
I did
adjustments
send
other
that
than
out
price.
too. Yeah, I sent Tot Hill out to somebody and they were like too many steps
Yeah,
up
that's
in
the
the air.
problem.
They hated it. Yeah. So
Yet the one down the street in March sold for 100,000 more than we're priced right now, same model.
crazy. Yep. The change is real. But I'm not ready for it. I'm like, I want it to be like last year because I've got other things to do.
Well, it was interesting. We were on that ninja selling call, and if you guys haven't got a chance to see it, check it out. It's put it up on our Facebook group. But one of the things we talked about was, I think it was the first half of the year, we saw 17% appreciation. And then if you look at kind of the averages that a lot of the industry experts are looking at, we're going to be somewhere around 9-10% appreciation this year. So what that means is, kind of coming, we're going to see almost what we're seeing right now is almost a price, deflation, right? Because of, to get from 17% to 9% at the end of the year, right? Your prices, that means probably prices need to come down a little bit. Even though at the end of the year, we're still going to have a year over year price appreciation, almost a double digit, which is really strong. It's just we're managing expectations right now. It sounds like that's a big problem we're running into.
Well, I think we should focus more on the days on market rather than price reduction. I mean, instead of thinking about decreasing all of a sudden, because I just think this it's very weird. It's so, because nothing's really changed if you think about it. The inventory is still low. There might be a little more, but it's people. I don't think we should go and concentrate on reductions. Maybe we need the increase in days in market. You know what I'm saying?
Not people, it's the rates. The
It's
rates are the
yeah,
rates are making this happen. It's not that people are
exactly.
scared. It's a fact. It's not fiction. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we needed a days on market increase, big time. I mean,
and I think that's a fair point to a certain extent. Just like we saw, if y'all remember way back in 2020, there was kind of a little like when we weren't sure what was going to happen with the real estate market. Reducing wasn't necessarily the key to everything, because sometimes it just took a little bit, right? With the low inventory market, sometimes you just need to get the right buyer in there. But with that said, I think I think this is twofold. I think there is some properties that are coming in a little high over the market based on old comps. So I think it's a little bit of both.
For our Tot Hill, we've had a couple agents tell us that they think it's overpriced. Yet their clients still aren't writing.
What's making them not right?
The stairs.
Okay.
It's just not the house for them, but mostly the stairs. But that's not something we can overcome. You can't paint them away or remove them, or, that's the model of the house. But obviously 6 months ago, there was multiple offers for that same model. So it's hard to then say it's only the stairs because people were willing to buy a house with those stairs 6 months ago.
So one, and I saw a great speaker at one of the R4s many years ago, and she talked about when it comes to feedback, and I know I get it, it can be hard getting feedback sometimes, but when you do get in touch with agents, and she talked about like kind of magic questions to ask, because sometimes what happens is people will give you feedback that's some type of condition, meaning condition of the property, objection. And then you transfer that information to your seller, and then they're just like, well, they don't like stairs, right? And the kind of the magic question she always asked folks when she asked for feedback was, well, at what price would your buyer buy the home? Right? Because if you can try to get down to, because that at the end of the day, I mean, yes, there are condition issues, and some of those, Tracy, like your guy's not going to put a bunch of fill dirt in the front yard to make it level, right? But is there a price that this buyer would have bought the property? Just because that's feedback, I think that can be very helpful for our sellers to kind of put stuff in context, because sometimes all they hear is the stairs, they hear the noisy backyard or whatnot. And really what we need to deliver sometimes is that pricing opinion that we don't get a lot of times.
Right. Although pretty much everyone, because we've had to really do some digging for each agent, and everyone has said they think it's priced fair, priced well, priced a little under. But when they got there, they just realized they didn't want to do those stairs. And I'm like, I've even started reaching out to agents before they show it and like, please, we can't continue to have the stairs be the objection. Make sure that your buyers are aware that there are stairs going up to the front door. If you go in the garage, you've got to go upstairs. And if that's an issue for them, I would love some more constructive feedback, because that's just not something we can change.
I mean, don't people see that? That makes me crazy. They know it's got stairs, or they know there's no basement, and then they tell you it's got no basement. Well, you
Exactly.
knew that.
Well,
That's not criticism. I mean, that is still drives me crazy.
Well,
Well,
and this is the root of what I'm talking about. Is that if you're getting these objections that tend to be softballs, right? Like, of course, there's no finished basement. Of course, it is on a busy road. You know that it's on Connecticut Avenue. That really, it's what you're not getting the feedback on is really a true price, and that's where specifically. I mean, is it how's it priced? It's priced okay, right? Like a lot of times agents don't want to get into that with us, right? And that's where I think it's, you know, again, maybe you guys have done this. I'm really critical of myself to make sure I'm always, if I can get someone on a text strand with feedback, I'm asking them at what price. Again, like that's my line. Like, at what price would your buyer have bought this property?
So I showed a house the other day, and the agent actually customized their showing time feedback. And it wasn't, is your buyer interested, you know, things like that. It was, what did you feel about the price? What did you feel about the condition? They asked more leading questions about the actual home versus, does your buyer care? So it's actually interesting to see people changing those more to try to get actual more constructive feedback versus just, is your buyer interested? Why or why not?
Yeah. Well, I agree about the price. You know, one of the things I remember Betty used to preach to me all the time, there's no such thing as an unsellable house. It's a matter of price. And, you know, the other thing too, is a buying agent, a lot of times when you get something as obvious like steps, and they've already seen the steps, and you get the feeling it's not really a true objection. One of the things I will say often is that's the reason for the price being this low. If we remove the steps, which I can find you on, you're going to pay more. And then usually a lot of times they'll start thinking about it a little bit and say, how much do you like the house? Doesn't always work, but try to.
Well, it depends on how motivated the seller is too.
All right. Okay, let's shift gears here a little bit. Do want to hop into our agenda. We got a full agenda today. Open this up. All righty. So a couple things, events coming up. Congressional Insurance has an event coming up on the 12th. Children's Miracle Network and Children's Hospital in DC do a race for every child. It is a 5K. They do a virtual option. We're going to do one if anyone's interested in taking a nice walk in the woods on Saturday, October 15th in the morning at 9 a.m. and having breakfast afterwards with me. You're more than welcome to come over. I'll send out an RSVP today. Kind of a last minute thrown together, but we want to get some people, if you are interested in kind of getting back involved with Children's Miracle Network, this is kind of a little bit of a kickoff for that. Tomorrow we have our bagels with the broker. So encourage you guys to come out for that. And then we have our Wednesday wisdom class after that, 10:30 to 11:30. We are going over video content. We have how many? 42 different must shoot videos. I got scripts for you. I can help you shoot them. Even if you just do a test run and see how beautiful you look on camera and how awesome you sound on camera. I can do a test run to see how that works. Okay. Market stats. Not a lot of huge changes. It just almost every single category in Montgomery County, except for coming soon, went down last week. New listings went down, not significantly, but new listings came down. New contracts came down below that 200 mark. And I think we all were kind of last week anticipating that there would be some shift with the spike in interest rates. Total inventories come down. So Frederick County, about the same. New listings came down a little bit. Contracts went up a little. Inventories hanging around 434. before I transition over to the new MR contracts breakdown, thoughts on the marketplace? Any further comments that you guys are seeing out there? New listings that came on, stuff you guys had success with, struggled with?
So I put an email out to the office whether or not to do a price reduction on a Friday or wait till after the weekend and do it next week. And it was kind of a mixed review. A bunch of people said you should wait. A bunch of people said, you know, if the buyer is serious, you should go ahead and do it now. So I kind of left it up to the seller as to how motivated they were. And they were extremely motivated. So we went forward with the price reduction on Friday afternoon. And we did end up with, I don't know, at least 4 to 5 new showings between Saturday and yesterday. And it does look like we are getting an offer. So it did. And in retrospect, that was the right move, almost regardless of the seller's sense of urgency. So I just wanted to let you guys know how that played out. So, and the price reduction was big enough to get us into a lower threshold. So we went from 675 to 650. So anybody looking 650 or less now, you know, it now appeared on their search. So, yeah. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Very cool. Any questions on that? All right, well, let's hop in here. October 1 is MR comes out with their forms release every year, new changes, and this year was a pretty significant change. I've got in our meeting notes, I've got a link to an Evernote file that has the kind of the walkthrough that MR has, along with all the forms that have been changed. I'm kind of going to give you some highlights of the forms. All right, so the MR sales contract had some significant changes. Basically, a lot of it is the reordering of the MR contract. So now you have these 7 kind of categories or sections that they've got: general contract provisions, payment and purchase price, condition and inspections, property specific disclosures, general disclosures, title and closing, and then what happens, breach of contract and dispute resolution. So section 1, kind of the just some reordering of the contract. Show you what it looks like now. Move these all together. Okay. So you got this section 1, times of the essence is kind of defined and brought to the forefront. There are some new forms that are added to that addenda and disclosures. They've also incorporated the electronic signing into the contract, even though it's kind of redundant. Electronic signing is kind of by law. It's been my understanding through the GCAR attorneys that it was already granted, but MR spells it out. Leases, this just adds another clause about the property is not tenant occupied. On that note, again, if you guys are ever selling a property that has a current lease on it, always get a copy of that lease from the seller. A couple other changes here: property condition inspections. So now inclusions, exclusions is taken off of the contract. So if you all remember, MR used to have a section of inclusions, exclusions. You used to have to take the information that the seller disclosed on their inclusions, exclusions sheet, hope you didn't make a mistake, and put it back into this contract, and then hope the seller didn't make a mistake and they didn't miss something. So now we have, just similar to GCAR, have a standalone seller inclusions, exclusions that can be ratified by both parties. Condition of property and possession. So at settlement, seller shall deliver property, vacant, clear trash and debris, broom clean and substantially same condition as of the date of contract acceptance. Buyer reserves the right to inspect the property 5 days prior to settlement to confirm the condition. Inspections, is the buyer going to have an inspection? Buyer will be afforded the opportunity at their cost. So now they've also completely tweaked their inspections addendum here.
So there's no as of date of contract, I mean, as of date of home inspection.
Yeah, that's GCAR.
Interesting.
MR has always been date of contract acceptance.
Oh,
They don't give the option. Yeah, Robert.
Can you just increase your screen size a bit so that's
Yeah.
bigger on our computer? Thank you.
So the buyer has to acknowledge if they're having an inspection or not having an inspection. And we'll hop over to those inspections. So one thing you'll notice in here, okay, property inspections, what inspections missing?
Right on.
That used to be in the contract? Anyone remember? Who said it?
Termite.
Yeah. Yep. So termites taken out of here. The thought is now you can create truly an as-is type of contract. So termite is gone. Section 4, property specific disclosures. They added another warning about HOA condo. Basically, the property is not in an HOA or condo unless there are documents attached. Section 5, general disclosures. Again, just kind of some reordering. They've updated the property insurance brochure link. Again, another section, transfer charges. So now they've done away with the first time Maryland home buyer standalone addendum. And now it's kind of incorporated all into the body of the contract. So now you've got your A and B, very similar looking to GCAR. And then they've added extra language in here about the Maryland non-resident seller. Seller may request Maryland comptroller to issue a certificate of full or partial exemption. And it kind of gives the information of where they go to get that, which I think is very helpful. This is an area that sometimes kind of catches us off guard, catches our clients off guard, and can create a problem. Property insurance, they've just added some extra language in here, nothing significant. We've got this default paragraph now has been moved to the end of the contract. Date of contract acceptance, and they put a definition here, insert the date on which all final initials and signatures of all parties have been affixed to the contract. And that was it for the main body of the contract. So some of this, it's going to look really weird because it's all moved around. And I definitely like the changes. I think it's, for those of you who work with a lot of MR, it's a lot like GCAR now in certain aspects. And I think the ordering, changing the order around is pretty smart. I think doing that kind of makes it more, there are topics, subjects, and then there are paragraphs that fall within those. So that's the main body of the contract. Any questions off the bat?
I have a question. I'm sorry, I came in late. You might have already touched on this, but so and I did look all this over, but with the termite, so is the termite considered a separate inspection, not having anything to do with the home inspection? Because that's how I look at it. The termite has its own paragraph in the contract. It's separate. Is that?
Yeah, let's hop over. Well, while it dovetails into, let's go to the property inspections addendum.
So now you just check that, Maria, that you want the termite and you want a radon or whatever, and it's negotiated just like those items. So if you get a bad termite thing, you need to send a notice on the notice saying that you want treatment done or what you want done.
Yeah, so you've got
Okay, so
into,
there's,
got,
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So there's not a separate paragraph in the contract about termites anymore. Is that?
No, they took it out.
So
Take
the whole
sellers
it out.
not
thing.
responsible for so sellers not responsible for termite anymore?
so
Is that
this,
what
Only
that's
if you
saying?
negotiate it.
everything's negotiable,
Only if you negotiate it.
correct?
Huh.
So
Oh, I
what,
don't like that.
yeah, what they found is that a lot of lender, the termite paragraph was, was a, kind of a vestige of a different era when lenders required these on conventional loans as well, required termite inspections. Now, a lot of lenders do not require termite inspections. So it is a negotiable part of the contract.
But it's not even mentioned.
So
Yeah,
Joe,
it's
it
like
used to be that,
It's
like
wood destroying insect.
if the fence
okay.
was 6 feet away from the property line and it had termites and the seller didn't have to treat. So none of that is clarified now, right? So termites could be 50 feet away from the property and the seller has to do something.
In theory, if it's on that wood destroying insect report, it's negotiable, right?
Right.
There is no, there are no ground rules put in here, which I think this is almost like I tell you, like, so for what I love about the changes they've made to MR, the sales contract, I think they almost like, before, like, there was just, like, I used to joke, like, their property inspections form was like 4 pages long. Like, it was just like, you don't need all of this. It's just way too verbose. This is like a little too lean. Because again, some of this is, you've got one inspection date in here. And again, your radon, you may want to do your structural mechanical quick, right? Like, I can get that done in 4 days. My radon, I'm probably going to need 6 days. So it would have been nice if there was some way to say, like, structural mechanical, which used to do, that's going to be 4 days. My radon's going to be 6. The chimney inspection is probably going to be 10 because it just takes a while for chimney folks to get out there. So that's going to be an issue. And like you guys said, the wood destroying insect thing is back up for complete debate as what's acceptable, what's not. There was potentially some gotcha moments with the wood destroying insect, and we talked about this, right? Like, this was one of the things that didn't make sense to go ahead and burn $35, have a termite company come out and just inspect your property just to make sure you don't get walloped with, because it wasn't just the treatment, it was the repairs, right? The repairs is, even if you didn't need treatment, right? Like, none of the insects were live, you're still on the, you were still on the hook to do repairs. Which could be that could be way more expensive than the treatment. All right. Yeah, Robert.
Just because it's not in the contract doesn't mean the lender may not require it. So, many lenders don't require termite, but some still do.
Yep.
And so, if a clear termite report is a condition to the loan, it's still a condition to the loan, and it's sort of irrelevant what the contract says. So.
Yeah, and that would probably, and that's going to probably fall into your financing repairs section, right? If there are lender required repairs, that's going to fall into that bucket.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So I have a real quick question on the delineation of like times for all of these, because if you're getting squeezed, let's say you have the buyer and you're getting squeezed and okay, structural and mechanical needs to be done in 3 days. Obviously radon's not going to get done in 3 days. Are you doing a general addendum at this point, or like just writing next to radon and saying this is contingent until and having everybody initial? Like, what is the new thought on how we're going to delineate out the different timeframes?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're going to write right next to radon, that it's X number of days, and you're going to have everybody initial that. And I bet you this form gets altered at some point in time.
Yeah. It's the only way you can do it.
Well, no, I think if you put up at the top, you know, shall have the right within 10 days. And then you mark radon and wood destroying and whatever, 10 days is enough to get all of that done.
It is, but as a listing
Yeah.
agent, you don't
Correct.
want this house off the
Correct.
market. You don't want this house off the market for 10 days. You want 5.
No,
to-
I don't want the house off the market for 10 days,
Yeah.
but I
So
mean.
I would
This is
rather have
the-
5 for structural and 7 for radon. You know,
I kind of agree with Robert on that. As a listing agent, I don't want to see 10 days on a home inspection. I get the structural and mechanical out of the way quickly.
Yeah,
So,
You know, the thing is I totally agree with you about the 10 days. And whenever I'm in Frederick County, I'm always having to write all this stuff about, the timeframes. But in Frederick County, 10 days is like, that's what they do over there. They,
I just got one on my gas house site and it was 10 days for, all the inspections.
yeah,
You know,
that's kind
And
of a
that is-
normal
I
way
bet
of
it's
life.
very typical up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
For Frederick.
But when I'm on the listing side in Frederick County, I don't let them do all that. I say, no way to 10 days. But I'm just saying that's the norm up there.
The notes here, buyer reserves the right to inspect and or test well and septic systems, water quality, water yield. And those are through separate addendums. So your well and septic tests are still separately done. And it does talk about buyer intends to obtain if the buyer intends to obtain VA financing, buyer retains the right to conduct an inspection for the wood destroying insects at their expense pursuant to VA regulations, notwithstanding the agreement of the parties stated herein.
so I have a
Weird
question
because-
on that.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so I have a question on that, because in the VA loan, this language is really weird because the buyer doesn't pay for the termite. It's paid by the seller. So is that up for debate now? I mean,
So and I think in their notes, they even note that that's a change with VA. I think let me find
Well, I think it's in the VA financing, then
give me
the
one.
seller agrees to pay for that stuff.
So Veterans Administration recently updated policy regarding payment of wood destroying insect inspection fees and repair costs specifically. While wood destroying insect inspections is still required by VA, the inspection fees and costs associated with necessary repairs may now be paid by buyer.
Oh, good.
No, but this one's saying
Interesting.
buyer.
So it's just another negotiable issue.
Correct. And I don't know if this is, we're all kind of catching up to speed on some of this stuff. But it sounds like VA, and I'd assume probably to be more competitive in the marketplace. What's one of the objections you have with VA? There's sometimes seller required repairs, seller required this, that I think maybe to be more competitive in the marketplace, they've gotten rid of that. All right.
Well, it
So
could come down just like radon, radon now is up for grabs. If the buyer doesn't do it, the seller has to do it. It's a single family home.
You gotta do the test. That's all.
say that again.
I said, it's like
Joe,
radon, it used to be if the buyer didn't want to do it, it didn't have to get done. Now, if the buyer decides not to do it, the seller has to do it. Somebody has to do it. But again, we're only talking $35, so it should be an easy thing to get around.
Is that only with the G card? I
It's
mean,
Montgomery County only, I thought.
yeah.
The seller doesn't have to remediate if it's high. They just need to provide.
No,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the remediation, just the test. Absolutely. Just like the test now for termites. Whoever pays for the termite inspection, the repairs are a whole different subject, I believe now.
Where do you get radon tests for $35? That's what I want to know. Send that to me.
He's talking
No,
about.
no, I didn't say you
termites.
get radon for $35. I think
Oh,
he's
okay.
talking about termite.
No, I know it. You were talking about radon, Joe Shaver, though. You said radon for $35. I was like, send that email to me.
Okay, I didn't mean to say, I
Oh,
didn't
okay,
mean
you
to
meant,
say radon
got
for
it, got it.
35.
Meant termite. Yep, thanks.
Okay, so here's the big, I'll tell you, here's the big sea change in this form also, which I like a lot. So number one, now there is a unilateral right to terminate, to terminate. So the buyers do have a right to terminate now. Previously, it was a big boxed in, I think it was 4B. And it was so friggin' clunky.
It was so complicated.
Yeah, and it, well, and I think they will probably have to next October make some changes to this form too. In this, you don't have the right to strike that though, right? Like, and I think that's one of the things with, one of the good things, bad things is there was a right to kind of negotiate this. But it's in here, it's kind of baked into the contract. So there is a unilateral right for the buyer to terminate.
Is there any reason we can't put an X through that and everybody
Yeah,
initially?
absolutely. Totally. That can be done. I always say, like, once you start crossing stuff out in a baked in paragraph, there is always a little bit of doubt that have we completely terminated this clause? Does it not pop up somewhere else in some other language? So that's just always a little bit of a concern. If it's not meant to be, agreed to or not agreed to. B2, this is your right to negotiate, right? This is something we're all familiar with. The seller's response period, seller has 5 days from that initial list to notify the buyer whether they're going to make changes, accept what the buyer has, do nothing, give them a credit. The one cool thing now is this part 4, there are additional negotiations. So thereafter, within 2 days after delivery of an offer or counteroffer regarding the requested repairs and or seller credit, the receiving party may deliver notice accepting terms contained immediately preceding counteroffer, or deliver notice continuing negotiations by making another counteroffer or unilateral notice of termination under contract of sale.
God, was that needed?
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not that familiar with MR inspections in the past, it was buyer does inspections, seller has 5 days to respond. Seller had 5 days to respond. Buyer had 2 days to either take it or leave it. That was it for the negotiations. So there was a little bit of a scramble from all parties if there was kind of an impasse on negotiations to verbally negotiate this and try to get the parties to pull together. Now there's a built-in 2 day back and forth. So that's very helpful.
And now the seller can void.
Yep. Unlike G-Car. So just so we're on the topic, just so you know, it's a little known kind of little nuance in G-Car, but in G-Car, if I'm the buyer, I send a list of 10 items, seller sends back a list of, crosses out half the list, sends back 5 items that they're willing to do. I, as the buyer, then void the contract. I send a void over. The seller can go back and take my last offer, which was the 10, and accept it, and the contract is not void. So in G-Car, there's always a little bit of a safety net from one party or the other to accept the other party's previous offer. In this, that does not exist. So there is a risk that you send that counter offer over, the other party unilaterally terminates the contract. Make sense?
Yep.
Questions on this? Thoughts on this?
Hey, Joe, I have a question on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically, the process now is you get a list of 10 items, you're the listing agent. You say, no, we're going to give you 3, you go back to them. There's a 2-day back and forth, basically from either side. They come back at you and they say, no, we want them all done. You now have the right to just unilaterally declare it null and void.
Correct.
Whoa,
Ooh.
whoa.
But
Okay,
at least I've only wasted 2 days.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
So in the G car, either party can deliver notice saying that this contract will become null and void unless the other party doesn't agree to the last notice delivered. This one is just boom. Is it done? Is it void at that
Yep.
point in time? The other party doesn't even have the opportunity to go back and say, no, wait, we'll take it.
So if you're representing the buyer and the seller has a possible another offer in the wind, you could be out of there by asking for repairs,
Yeah.
because they can say no. That's what I like about the G car contract. But this is still better than what we had.
Yeah. And in theory, in practice, what typically, it's rare that clause where someone voids in G car and then someone comes back and accepts the previous offer. It is really rare that happens. I think what happens in most cases is buyer and seller are just sick of each other. And it's almost like, I don't want to sell you my house anymore. And I don't want to buy your house anymore by the end of the negotiation. So this is something just to keep in mind, that is, and we dealt with that a little bit. So G car's appraisal was like this too. There was always a risk once you send that appraisal notice over, the seller can just basically void it or not respond, which would create a void situation. So that is just a nuance that we need to be careful of. It can't hurt to ask, and potentially it could hurt. All right. One of the other things that just kind of caught my eye was paragraph 3, repairs, corrections, reinspection. Seller agrees to complete repairs and provide receipts in a sufficient time for buyer to reinspect prior to settlement. Buyer shall have the right to reinspect the property upon the completion of repairs or corrective action by seller to confirm that seller has performed in good workmanlike manner all the repairs and corrective actions which seller agreed to perform. I don't love this because so let's say you have a list of 10 items, right, that the seller is going to repair: 3 plumbing, 3 electrical, 3 HVAC, and 1 general contractor fixing the deck. So you have 4 service people, four jobs being done. So in theory, the electrician finishes his work tonight, so the buyer can reinspect tomorrow. Is that what they're saying here? And then the plumber finishes next week, and then the buyer can come back in and reinspect after that. Right. I think this should be cleaned up a little bit, that, I get that they have the right to reinspect prior to settlement, but in most cases, in theory, that's done during the pre-settlement walkthrough.
What's the definition of sufficient time?
Yeah.
Is it 2 days? Is it an hour? Is it a week?
Yep.
And it doesn't say that it has to be performed by a licensed contractor, or does it say that somewhere else?
That's my question actually on this paragraph also, is the one Maria just asked, is now, so it's very broad. It just says provide receipts. Like there's no, so-and-so is going to provide receipts. So if you've got a list of 10 items, out of those, maybe you want receipts on 9 out of 10 and one doesn't, the seller's doing himself, like that. So no more delineation of that. That's gone too.
It says in a good and workmanlike manner at the bottom left. That's all.
I think when you're writing your list, you're going to have to specify which items you want corrected
done by
by
professional.
licensed. You're going to have to say it each and every time.
Yep, I agree, Maria.
I think it brings up a lot of question. Like I had one where they didn't think that the repair was done properly, even though that it was a licensed HVAC contractor that did it. And, I think it's just going to open up a can of worms on that. Like the buyer can come and say that they're not happy with how it was done, even though it was done a certain way. It may not be the way they want it done.
I mean, I think in that case, if you have a receipt from a licensed contractor, that's
it.
that's it. Yeah,
right.
that's it. Otherwise, if you're worried about that and you're representing the buyer, then you should go for a credit. That way the buyer can oversee
Right,
their work themselves.
right.
Yeah, and
exactly.
some of this is also in theory, any contractor. So the only person who should be able, who should be doing any electrical work should be a licensed electrician.
So just on that note too,
Yep.
because I had an issue with this and I did call an attorney. So licensed contractor does not mean that they have to have an MHIC. Licensed contractor just means that they have to be a licensed electrician, a licensed plumber, but they do not have to be MHIC.
What is MHIC?
That's what a contractor's MHIC just means that they have the ability to, they're a general contractor and they have an ability to pull a permit where, my son is an HVAC technician and he's licensed and he has a license number, but he's not MHIC. And most of your electricians are not MHIC. They have they have their journeyman's license, which is all that is required. That's, if you ask an attorney, that's all that is required. I didn't know if you guys knew that.
Joe, one quick question, just
Yep.
clarification between G-Car and Mar now. So
Yep.
G-Car, the back and forth is 3 days, and here it's 2 days.
Yes. But the seller gets an initial 5-day.
Got it. Got that initial 5, but that back and forth, there is a differentiation. G-Car is still 3. Here we're at 2.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the other big changes is, and again, the last marketplace, we saw this additional as is, this as is with the right to negotiate or right to cancel. Right? Is that what anyway, so MR had a kind of a really, you get all of these things you can inspect. Your only remedy is to cancel the contract. They have done away with the old as-is inspections addendum. Now they have an additional as-is provisions addendum, which is kind of similar to what G-Car has in the addendum of clauses, where all clauses pertaining to delivery of the property being free of trash and debris are removed. All requirements by an HOA or condo are removed, and any county violations notice or requirements issued by government authorities pertaining to the property as stated in the property are removed. So, the question then becomes, how do you make a, for information purposes, only home inspection, a only right to cancel home inspection? I think it kind of goes back to, and their explanation of this was, what they found in so many cases was that people were doing a as-is home inspection with only the right to cancel, but coming back with a list of items to repair. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened to anyone in here, but it was happening. They said it at such a high rate that they decided that they wanted to just take it out because it was getting abused. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because if you did want to do if your true intent was to do a, for information purposes, cancel only home inspection, you really have to go back to I guess you'd have to go back to the inspections addendum and then start striking a bunch of stuff out of it to make it a, for information purposes only inspection.
There'd be no problem with that, though. Just keep the paragraph 1 that says, right to void, and cross off the rest. I mean, that's sort of what they've left us here, right? I know you hate that. That's a lot of crossing off.
Yeah, it just, and again, I'm always, look, like, I can't, if it's a properly structured addendum that has a checkbox here and a checkbox here, choose A, choose B, I get that. When it's my job as a real estate agent to help my client get through a contract. Now I'm starting to strike stuff. I can't without 100% tell them, I've crossed out everything specifically I need to, because there could be some situation. Again, how these forms work, they work in a sequential order. That's my concern always, that
You're also playing lawyer at that point.
yeah. I mean, right.
It
Like that.
seems like we'd better off just to do a general addendum saying that buyer and seller agree that the buyer has a right to have a home inspection within X number of days of ratification. Buyer has the opportunity to declare the contract void or proceed with the purchase as stated in the contract. That's it.
Yeah, because that's not playing no attorney either. But yeah. You can
Well,
do
I would get that written by
that.
by
Of course.
an attorney.
I'm joking.
I know you.
So
Yeah.
I've always heard that we're not legally supposed to cross out anything in a contract. And I've had agents literally call me out and say, no, you can't do that. And if I'm representing the buyer and they're representing the seller and they're saying, no, you can't do that, then I've got to figure out another way around it, like Robert's, suggesting. But I'm just saying, I've kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah. I think you run the risk, again, whenever you're crossing anything out of a contract, that have you properly, stricken it? Is it truly
Right.
gone from the contract? But yeah, you can, I mean, just like this says, I mean, for what this as is addendum does, this strikes certain paragraphs, right? I mean, in theory, this is doing
Right.
the same exact thing. It's just not
Right.
pen to paper or using a strikeout program to
Right.
so that's up for debate. There's always, well, will your E&O cover it if you're modifying board approved forms? I think where you run into issues is when you actually start, kind of creating your own forms or creating your own language, where that can become a gray area. I think striking paragraphs is it allowed? Absolutely. If clients want to strike paragraphs from contracts, attorneys do it all the time, right? Like I always get listing agreements. I get contracts from agents, who are representing estates who want to strike the mediation clause. They want to strike certain parts of the contract. They have every right to do that. So that's
Just one more thing.
Yeah,
So
no.
I noticed the language change. So in the old as is the one that they've taken out,
Mhm.
they had, you can do any inspection. So if you're representing the buyer, you had the right to do anything. You did not actually have to specify. Now that they've gone to a specified form, you now actually have to list every single inspection you're thinking of doing up front, instead of that broad, leeway that they gave you and said, okay, do whatever you want to do in X amount of time and then be done, be gone. Now it's like, okay, if you didn't delineate that out, home inspector goes in, finds something, you need an additional one, I guess you're getting permission again. Like there was no, maybe I missed it, but I went back, the form that they removed carried that language that covered us to do that additional inspection in the given time. And now I don't see that. Did I miss that?
You are correct. And again, that was one of the really nice things about that form. It kind of took everything, because when you operate in MR, I mean, like everything's delineated, right? Like chimney inspection, environmental, radon, all this stuff is broken out separately. What I've tended to see is kind of a practice under additional inspections.
Right.
Any additional inspections noted by home inspector.
Yep.
That gives you the right to kind of go back in and ask for another inspection.
Well, a lot of times,
But it's not, Seema, to your point, it's not as clean that way. I mean, I think it definitely leaves some interpretation.
but if there's if you go with your home inspector, and what happens sometimes is that they'll maybe, something you didn't know right there on the spot. And then the buyer all of a sudden decides he wants to do mold. And maybe that wasn't checked off. can he still do it? Or do you have to set up a whole separate thing?
So that's where, again, going back to that additional inspections I put in there when dealing with MR is any additional inspections noted by home inspector. I'm
Okay.
actually,
So you would put that in there and not be specific, but anything that might, yeah, okay.
Yeah, always put that and get the seller to sign, because that's very important. We never know when a home inspector is going to come up with something.
right. And it's
Exactly.
one of the things we find
Okay.
happens is the like, for instance, a chimney inspection, right? Like
Kind of
sometimes
like the G-Car contract better. I'm not sure.
I agree.
Yeah,
We lost sound.
that's me.
Oh.
Can you guys hear me? Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, so one last form I want to go over is the inclusions, exclusions. So this is what the new form looks like. It is revolutionary, right? It basically has all of the inclusions, exclusions items, leased items, and then utilities. So this is very similar to the way the form used to be. It just now it can be incorporated as an addendum to the contract, as opposed to having to transcribe all of that information into the body of the contract.
And Joe, we're supposed to, there's not like a double place for the seller to sign originally, and then after there's a contract. So I'm assuming we're supposed to fill this out as a selling side as part of the disclosures.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Kind of questions. I know we've gone all over the place with this stuff.
Are these forms in zip forms already?
Yes. Yep. They are in zip forms now.
What's the
keep an eye out,
effective date, Joe?
October 1st. I've reached out to MR's education department. They're coming out with some videos and some more training. You know, and I think there's going to be a couple bumps in the road with some of this stuff. Like we pointed out, I think with that reinspection of repair items, I think probably needs to be cleaned up. And I think the days for inspections probably needs some tweaking and some understanding. And you might be working with a listing agent who they send you the disclosure package and it's got it on the old form and you don't have anywhere to put, you know, and it's got that stuff. So for instance, I submitted a contract last night and I submitted this form and I wrote on the seller disclosure form that they sent. I put it, you know, kind of a counter that the seller would transfer the information to the new form. All right, thoughts, questions? Well, we got a couple more minutes left.
Change is
So-
scary. It'll all be fine.
Is there a, so with G-Car, when you want to submit your home inspection list to the seller, there's obviously a form that we use. Does MR have that same form?
Yes, they do. And I did not pull that one up for this discussion. And I believe that one has, I imagine that's gotten some changes yet, but I have not reviewed that one yet prior to this class. So I'll take a look at that.
I did look at it. It did change to match the language on the contract, the new HICRA. Yeah.
Does it reiterate the time frames?
Yes, it does.
Other questions?
Is it time to retire soon?
Not yet. Come on, there's still plenty of meat on the bones. Let's see here. I was going to look that up real quick to see if I can.
So on that form, I mean, if you find mold, you're gonna go back to that form or a general addendum that says buyer and seller agree to extend the home inspection deadline for the buyer to have mold testing done.
That's
I mean,
it.
that's the way it always was. That's why you had to do it before. That's just an example.
Yeah, I can't find the new form in my library. I'm gonna have to look it up. But Seema, you said you took a look at it. Is that who said that?
I did, and I went directly to their site. I went to the Mar site.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Before we hop off, any other questions, comments, Heather, anything that I missed?
I do have several things. You've got a few things on your desk. We need to acknowledge a few agents that are on this call. Erica and Margie are on the call today.
We had some first transaction letters. This is Erica. I'm sorry, this is Margie's. Congrats, Margie.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay.
And then Eric-
Congratulations.
Don't spend that dollar all in one place.
Oh, I'll try. It's going to be hard.
And then Erica Herrera had her first transaction as well. So congratulations, guys.
Yay,
Yay.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
And on that same note, you guys are working with the agents and know the transactions and how they're going. So if you have somebody that you think is going to be a good fit to our family here in Olney and Clarksburg, Joe and I would really appreciate it if you'd reach out to us. We'll, set up a meeting together so it's not as cold for them and us, and get together so that we can meet them and see what's great about them that you see. And then next thing is we do have an opportunity for some headshots. Joe had sent out an email. It's been in my daily email. Some of you really need new headshots. Putting it mildly.
Who are they?
I sent an email to them and I
Wow.
never heard back.
Did you click on the link to sign up, Jeannie? I'll figure that out with you. But if anybody
did.
wants to do it and they need help, I will make it happen for you. But it's $65 for headshots, which is a really great price.
Yeah, I did, by the way, click on the link, but yeah.
Okay, we'll figure that out. And then Joe's new series that he's doing, the Wednesday Wisdom. If you have something that's come up that you have a problem with or you think would be a good class idea, please reach out to him or I, or just shoot us a text. We've gotten some really great ideas, but I'd love to hear some more, just things that are going on that we can help with. And while we were on this call, just looking at numbers, I wanted to let you guys know brokers opens are coming back. We've got actually 11 in the area today, which we haven't seen in quite a while. One is in Mount Airy, out of that 11. But so they're happening more. So if you need help promoting any of that or you want to have one, please let me know and we'll help get something on social media for you. That's all.
Cool.
And read my daily email. This is all in it.
All right. And then one last thing before I leave you guys, I've got in the meeting notes, one of our buddies, Jason Rain from Remax in Kansas City. He's the Sofa King Remax agent. Did it. Anyways. So he did a pros cons of buying a home in the current market. And it's just kind of cool. Like it's kind of a breakdown. Again, someone mentions higher rates. It's like kryptonite. I see people like, I don't know how to talk about the real estate market without the rates, right? But talks about the pros in this market. And for some people, it's time to start thinking about some other things. There are some positives in this market. So I'll leave that for you guys. That'll be in our notes today. Thank you all so much for sitting through this contract and clauses presentation. Any questions, any comments, any concerns come up, please let me know. And I'll see you guys next week. And
Joe,
tomorrow.
do we have an attorney that's associated with the office that sort of we can call as our go-to through Remax, or just continue using our old people?
Yeah, so we do have, depending on what you need, we've got kind of resources and referrals of people, depending on if it is a litigator, depending on if it's a development attorney, or depending on if it's kind of your contract attorney. So yes, we've got referrals for that.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll see everybody at 9:30 tomorrow morning for Bagels with Joe, and then class right after that.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you,
Heather.
guys.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank
Have a
you
great
guys.
day. Bye. A lot of people, 39 people.
Yeah, I was busy today. I think
Mhm.
the contracts, people wanted to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think you should have a separate contract class.
Yeah, there's so little resources right now from MR that
Mhm.
I wanted to get the big stuff out. And then, there's got to be other nuances. And then there's still some other forms that have changed, with like conventional financing, the new septic. Yeah, so I definitely want to do that.
Great.
Cool. All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.